Ghana's democratic consolidation. As our democracy continues to evolve, its resilience will depend on sustained civic engagement, responsible leadership, and a shared commitment to the public. It is my fervent hope and earnest expectation that participants leave this forum with a clearer appreciation of Parliament's role, a deeper understanding of centrism as a governing philosophy, and a renewed dedication to the responsibilities of democratic citizenship. May today's conversation be bold, honest, respectful, and ultimately secure for us and prosperity. The blessing of liberty. What is your prosperity? Okay. Thank you, the clerk to Parliament.
We have with us the second Deputy Minority Whip, the Honorable Jerry Ahmed Shaibu, MP for Wejagbawe. The next on the program is a remark from the Majority Leader and Leader of Government Business. He's a distinguished legislator, an inspiration to many of us as young MPs. Let's welcome the Honorable Mahama Ayariga, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Second Deputy Speaker, the Clerk of Parliament, my colleague, the Minority Leader, colleague members of Parliament who are here, and I see very senior friends of mine who have come to join us, and former members of this House who are here. I welcome all of you to this important function. But for the way people put it, someone would have been Vice President. Maybe I would not have had the benefit to come with him in the room. So, my big brother, you're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, this indeed is a momentous occasion. The ninth Parliament has indeed built on the many gains of the previous Parliament of the Fourth Republic, and I'm very happy to be part of such great additions to our country's democracy. That's why I'm not just happy, but also honored to give these remarks as a precursor to the lecture that will be delivered by the Honorable Minority Leader at this maiden edition of the Public Affairs Subdivision's Public Lecture, aimed at demystifying the institutions of Parliament, bringing it closer to the people, and ultimately engendering effective citizen participation in our legislative process. Let me veer off a little from my speech. When I became the majority leader, the first thing that I did was to work with the Public Affairs Department to establish a television station for Parliament. That was the first thing that I did. And because of that proceedings are now live on national television. Across the country, everybody gets to watch proceedings live. They don't have to wait till evening and then, after the news, City FM will report today in Parliament and then give some highlights of what could have happened during that day. Now, citizens, when they are available and even when they are busy in their offices, will just be watching their televisions and then they'll be following debates in Parliament, how their issues are being addressed in Parliament. And that has indeed given a lot of attention to Parliament in recent times. But what it has also done is that when we finish proceedings, we tend not to have a lot of content. So we have to keep repeating and repeating and repeating the proceedings of the previous day. And then we keep repeating these interviews of members of Parliament. I'm sure people are bored of those interviews being repeated, every single day. And so we have to develop content. We have to develop content so that at all times there's something new in terms of what our television station is broadcasting. I find this initiative to have these lecture series as something that will go to assist our station to develop content that can be broadcast and continue to engage the public. I know some may be thinking that centrism is just a fancy word for people who cannot make up their minds. Let us journey together through what centrism actually means, not in a political sense, but in the lived reality of our country. Ghana, because of the story of centrism, is in many ways the story of how we have governed ourselves. Understanding the left and the right. To understand centrism, we must first understand what it sits between. On one hand, on one end of the political spectrum, we have the left, center left, and far left. On the other hand, we have the right, center right, and then the far. The political left, in its classical sense, believes in the active role of the state. It believes that inequality is not natural, it is structural. That if you are born poor, it is not simply because you did not work hard enough, it is because systems, institutions, and histories have stacked the odds against you. And therefore, it is the job of government to intervene, to redistribute wealth, to provide public services, to regulate markets, to protect workers, to ensure that every citizen has a floor beneath their feet below which they cannot fail. On the other side, the political right, in its classical sense, believes in the primacy of individual freedom and the power of the free market. It argues that when government tries to do too much, it does most things badly. It creates bureaucracy and stifles innovation and obstructs private enterprise. The right says, get the state out of the way, let businesses compete, let individuals make their own choices, let the market determine prices, let merit determine outcomes. In the long run, the rising tide will lift all boats. This is the tradition that gave birth to privatization, deregulation, low-tax economies, entrepreneurship culture, and here in Ghana, it resonated in sentiments like, let the private sector lead, create the conditions for business to thrive, trust the Ghanaian entrepreneur. Both of these traditions have produced results. Both have also produced failures. The far left, taken to its extreme, has produced states that are bloated, corrupt, and repressive, where the government controls everything and citizens control nothing. The far right, taken to its extreme, has produced societies of savage inequality, where a handful of people own almost everything and the majority struggle to survive. This is where centrism becomes a mitigating factor. Centrism may sound cautious or even denote indecision. After all, political ideologies conventionally must pander to either the left or the right. That, after all, is what distinguishes socialism from capitalism, and it is what capitalism, and that is what, in conventional terms, political parties and their ideologies must show. So to some, perhaps, centrism becomes a convenient place to stand when one does not wish to offend either side. But I want to suggest that in the Ghanaian experience, centrism is none of those things. True centrism is the deliberate, principled decision to draw from both traditions, to take what works from the left and what works from the right, and to apply them not based on ideology, but based on evidence, context, and the actual needs of the people. A centrist government can support free market principles in one breath and defend robust public investments in the next, because it understands the reality is more complex than any single ideology can capture. It does not ask whether a policy left or it does not ask whether a policy is left or right, but interrogates whether the policy works, whether it improves the lives of the people, if it is just or sustainable. Center-left politics leans towards using the state to address inequality and provide social services, while still accepting the market as the primary engine of growth. Center-right politics leans towards trusting the market and limiting government interventions, while accepting that some regulations and some social provision is necessary. These two center positions, center-left and center-right, are closer to each other than their fringes would have you believe. And in many of the world's most successful democracies, governance alternates between these two centrist poles. The result is stability, growth, and progress. Now, what has been the Ghanaian experience of centrism? As Ghana is a fascinating case study in centrism, not because we deliberately designed it that way, but because our history, our culture, and our constitutional architecture have conspired to produce it naturally for us here in Ghana, in our political life. Centrism has even been a source of comfort. At this point, let me veer off from my speech and just indicate that when it comes to the debate about centrism, center-right, center-left, and all that, far right, far left, and all that, I find that our constitution is clear on what should be the political ideology of Ghana. And I have my senior lawyers in this room. If you go to the directive principles of state policy, the directive principles of state policy says that the directive principles of state policy contained in this chapter shall guide all citizens, Parliament, the President, the Judiciary, the Council of State, the Cabinet, political parties, and other bodies and persons in applying or interpreting this Constitution or any other law, and in taking and implementing any policy decision for the establishment of a just and free society. So the directive principle of state policy has predetermined the ideology of Ghana. And if you read through the provisions on economic objectives and social objectives, you will find out that, in fact, we don't even need to be engaged in a debate about whether we are left or we are right, because the Constitution has defined an ideology for us. And clearly, that ideology is centrism, which is that invest if you have to invest. Allow the private sector if you have to allow the private sector. But ultimately, do whatever it takes so that you can establish a just and free society in which people are enabled to benefit from governance. It is my considered opinion that since 1993, governments of different political traditions have come into office with strong convictions and clear mandates. For over 30 years now, power has alternated between the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party. And if you study their records in government, you will find something very interesting. Both parties, when they govern, end up governing from the center. The NDC, which traces its roots to a revolutionary tradition, has presided over market liberalization, private sector partnerships, and fiscal austerity when necessary. The NPP, which champions free enterprise, has expanded social protection programs, built public infrastructure, and intervened heavily in the economy when the situation demanded it. This is not hypocrisy, this is centrism in practice. This is what responsible governance looks like when you are no longer complaining, but actually running a country with diverse needs, limited resources, and complex challenges. So the question we must confront is not whether centrism sounds attractive, but whether it can be used in addressing inequality, in managing our economy, in strengthening our institutions, and in restoring confidence in democratic leadership. In the Ghanaian context, I believe the answer lies first in our constitution. 1992 constitution is not an ideological document. It does not belong to the left or the right. It is a carefully negotiated framework shaped by history, restraint, and hard experience. It disperses power, protects rights, and insists on accountability. That constitutional dissent in the most serious sense, and I read the directive principle of state policy to you, and I challenge everybody that we are not allowed to either be left or right. If we seek to run this country under this constitution, we must all be in the center. That's what the constitution has dictated. That constitutional design, it demands balance, it demands justification, it demands that power be exercised with reason rather than impulse, and that is what guides constitutional spirit. That is what guides constitutional spirit and should guide how we make policy. Centrist policy making does not begin with conclusions. It begins with questions. It asks what the evidence shows, what comparable societies have learned, and how proposed solutions will affect real people in real places, not in theory, but in practice. It requires the humility to revise policies that are not working, and the courage to say so publicly. So it requires the humility to revise policies that are not working, and the courage to say so publicly. In politics, that is not easy, but governance is not a test of stubbornness, it is a test of results. True centrism has a backbone. That is why when you promise cocoa farmers, 70% of the cocoa price, and world market price, slumps, and you are now earning only 2,000 and a little bit above 2,000 from the world market price. It is not stubbornness that should determine. It's pragmatism, reality, and centrism that should determine. You have to be honest with the people and tell them that you are not able to pay them that price because the world market price dictates that you should gain less than what we originally promised you. So that is what it is. It is prepared. It is prepared to redistribute when justice requires it. It is prepared to regulate when the public interest demands it. And it is prepared to liberalize when growth and innovation depends on it. What matters is not where a policy sits on an ideological spectrum, but whether it improves the lived reality of the Ghanaian people. 32 years into the Fourth Republic, Ghana is still defining itself, still negotiating the balance between liberty and order, growth and equity, ambition and restraint. That negotiation is democracy, and Parliament is where that negotiation takes institutional form. That is what this lecture series is about. It is Parliament saying to the people of Ghana, we want to think out loud with you. We want you to understand how we reason, how we decide, and we want to hear how you reason too. To our distinguished speaker for today, the Honorable Minority Leader, I say the floor is yours, and we look forward to your insights. Let us have a frank and deep conversation on how our policies are posited and how they affect our people. As law and policy makers, it is our duty to hold these types of conversations with the people whose mandate we have. And at the end of this day, let's leave here a little more equipped to build Ghana, the Ghana we all deserve. Thank you, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana.
Thank you to the majority leader, the Honorable Mahama Ayariga. I wish I had the power to ask whether or not the fantastic cocoa calculation was also part of the statement admitted. But I do not have that power, so I will not go there. Honorable members, distinguished guests, we also have with us the former Member of Parliament for Yendi, Alhaji Dr. Farouk Aliyu Mahama. I will recognize many more former MPs and other guests as and when they bring it to my attention. We'll take some short musical interlude. To do that, I invite the cultural performance by the Bibigroma group, a brief one. beautiful performance. We may have to investigate who conspired to get them to sing some of Minority Leader's favorite songs. I know, but for the fact that he is the keynote speaker, he would have joined them on the dancing floor with his Agbaja dance. Thank you, Ebibi Groma Group, for that beautiful performance. Distinguished guests, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, to another important part of the program. It is time to hear from the main speaker for today. But I do not consider myself worthy enough to introduce him. So I will call on a senior brother, a senior in Parliament, a young man who is the ranking member on the Youth and Sports Committee. He's a member of the Economy and Development Committee. He was a member of the Education Committee in the 8th Parliament. He is the Member of Parliament for the Old Tafo constituency, the Honorable Lawyer Vincent Eko. And while he walks up here, don't say that the Vincent you see today is because of the mentorship of the likes of Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. Thank you so much, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, for mentoring this young man. Vincent, kindly introduce the main speaker.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Adam Agwana. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and privilege to introduce to you a man whose name has become synonymous with strategic leadership, eloquence, and dedicated public service in Ghana's democratic journey. He is a legal luminary, an accomplished legislator, entrepreneur, and a strategic leader with over a decade of active engagement in parliamentary business, underpinned by an exceptional academic and legal foundation. Born on the 27th of May 1978, his educational journey began at STC Demonstration Primary and Junior High School, where he wrote his BEc in August 1994. He advanced to the prestigious St. Augustine's College, Cape Coast, where he completed his SSSC in December 1997. He then crossed continents to pursue law at the University of Buckingham in the United Kingdom, where he earned an LLB with management. Following this, he trained at the Ghana School of Law, obtaining his professional law certificate, and was subsequently called to the bar. To broaden his horizon, he pursued further studies in MA in International Politics and Security at the University of Bradford. He also pursued a postgraduate studies in leadership and governance at the prestigious Said Business School, University of Oxford. He was elected a Member of Parliament for Afenyo constituency in 2012 on the ticket of the New Patriotic Party. He has since served with distinction in parliamentary leadership, first as Deputy Majority Leader, then as Majority Leader in the 8th Parliament, and currently as Minority Leader. Mighty Minority Leader. Within Parliament, he has been a key voice on influential committees such as Defense and Interior, Finance and Public Accounts. He currently serves as a ranking member on both the